Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to learn how to solve quadratic equations. We have already got introduced to what is a quadratic equation, right? It is any equation of the form ax square plus bx plus c equals to 0, right? Now, in this video, we are going to learn how to solve. Okay. On the screen, you can see there are two methods enlisted. First one is factorization and the second one is quadratic formula. Factorization you have already learned in great depths in class 9th, right? And still, if you want to refer to any of these methods, there can be identities, there can be remainder theorem, there can be factor theorem, there can be splitting the middle term, though it is again a part of the identities. I am attaching all the links down below so that you can refer to all the videos, whichever method you want to refer to. Okay. Now, over here in this video, we are going to learn majorly about quadratic formula because it is actually a new thing. The two main things that you are going to use maximum to solve any quadratic equation is the first one is going to be splitting the middle term. And the second one, quadratic formula. Okay. Now, let's learn what is the quadratic formula. First of all, we will write our standard form. Ax square plus bx plus c equals 0. This is the standard form, right? Now, when we talk about a quadratic formula, it is minus b plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac whole divided with 2a. Do remember this formula by heart. Now, what is BAC in the formula? They are the values of the coefficients in the standard form. We had used a over here, ax square. That is the same a that exists in the root and in the denominator. Then we had the coefficient of b, right, for x. That is the same b that we have in the formula as minus b and in b square. And then talking about the constant c, it is the same c in the root also. Now, this formula will give you what? This formula is going to give you two roots, that is two values of x. Okay. When we solve a quadratic equation, the values of x that we get, we call them as roots. In polynomials chapter, you had learned that the values of x that you were getting after solving them was called as zeros. But when we do the questions with respect to quadratic formula, we call them roots. It is just a difference of the name, although the values are being found out using the same method, because in polynomials also you were doing using splitting. Over here also we can find the values of x by splitting. And even though we find them by using the quadratic formula, it doesn't make any difference whether you call them as zero or roots. But when we are doing the questions with respect to quadratic, you will always find the term mentioned as roots. Okay. Now, this is the formula, which is minus b plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac whole divided by 2a. Over here, just pay attention that there is plus and minus both written together, right? And why that? Because following next after this plus and minus is actually a square root. And when we talk about a square root, it gives us two kinds of values, either positive or negative, right? Whether we may need the negative value or not, but it gives us, right? So we have to explore both the options every time when we are dealing with a quadratic equation. And hence, the two values of x that we get is, the first value can be written as minus b plus square root of b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. And then the second value comes out to be minus b minus square root of b square minus 4ac whole divided with 2a. Okay. So this is how we use a quadratic formula. We have just learned what is it. Now, we need to learn another important thing. which is called as discriminant. Discriminant is represented by a letter capital D, right? And its value is b square minus 4ac. 4b square minus 4ac is the same thing that we had written in root over here, right? That means now what I am referring this thing as our d. Only the expression that I have written inside the root, not including the root. Okay. So just inside the root is actually d. That means I can refer to the formula as minus b under root of d whole over 2a. Right? It means the same thing. Okay. Now, let's learn more about discriminant. Discriminant over here, you can see that I have categorized 3 partitions over here. The first one being, we are going to understand the nature of the discriminant, right? When we talk about the nature, there can be 3 things. The first one, when our d is actually greater than 0. Because see, we are solving the value of an expression. There can be so many kind of values. First, it can be positive. Second, it can be negative. And third, it might be 0, right? So we are going to explore and understand all 3 cases over here. The first one I have written, d is greater than 0, means I am talking about b square minus 4ac to be greater than 0. Now, what does this gives me? This gives us that the values of x, the first value is going to be minus b plus minus, sorry, it's not going to be plus minus. I'm writing both differently, separately. So minus b plus under root of d over 2a. And then the next value minus b minus under root of d divided by 2a. So we are getting both different options. And when d is greater than 0, what is it called? We can see that they are called as 2 real roots. So the nature is defined that the roots we are getting are real. And why do we call them real? Because see, what we have is in the root, in the square root, we are getting some positive value. So now when you solve it with minus b plus square root of your d and whole divided by 2a, whether the whole value comes out to be negative, positive, decimal, rational, irrational, it is still going to be a real value, and hence it is called by the name that 2 real roots. Okay, you need to memorize this because the questions do ask, define the nature of the roots or verify if the roots are real or the following terms that we are going to learn next. Okay, now moving on to the second case. When our d equals 0. Okay, d equals 0 means our b square minus 4ac equals 0, right? So what are going to be the values of our x in this case? x1 comes out to be minus b plus 0 whole divided by 2a, and hence it is just minus b by 2a, right? The second value, x2 minus b minus 0 divided by 2a, and hence minus b by 2a. So what are we seeing over here? What do we have? Same values. That means when a d is 0, we are getting same roots, that is equal roots. And hence the name over here, hence the nature of root is equal. Equal roots we are getting when our d is equals 0. Is it clear? Okay. Now moving on to the last, the third case, which is when our d is less than 0. d less than 0 means we are talking about b square minus 4ac less than 0. That means it is some negative value. Less than 0 means negative value. So now what do we get for x? My x1 is going to be minus b plus under root of minus d. I'm just taking it negative inside the root because d is negative, being less than 0 over 2a. And similarly, x2 comes out to be minus b minus in the root minus d. whole divided by 2a. Okay, now guys, have you ever seen any value in the root which is negative inside? You can have negative outside, but have you ever solved, since you started learning square roots, have you ever solved for any value which is negative in the root? Can you actually find it? Or think about, can any value after being squared still remain negative? No, it is not possible, right? And therefore, these values cannot exist. So, what is going to be the name when we are talking about d less than 0? They are called as no real roots. It means we are not going to find any value, we are not getting any value of x when d is less than 0. So now on this slide, it is highly important information because over here, first we had learned what was the quadratic formula, but after that, we learned about discriminant in detail over here. The three cases were d is greater than 0, so we call two real roots. Second case, when d was equal to 0, we named that as equal roots. And the last, when d is less than 0, we call it no real roots. Okay. Now, let's do a few examples. The first question on the screen we have is, find the discriminant of 2x squared minus 4x plus 3 and find the nature of roots. I have picked this question from NCERT. It is an example in the book, which is clearly talking about finding the discriminant and commenting upon the nature, right? So let's start solving. Over here, they are just talking about discriminant clearly, right? They are not asking you to find the value of x. So do not involve the whole quadratic formula over here. We will just be using d. So what is discriminant? Discriminant, though it is not required to be written in full, but since I am teaching over here, I am writing once incomplete. Discriminant equals d, which is b square minus 4ac, right? Now, this equation is 2x square minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. So what is our ABC? I'm just writing it for your reference. A, B, C. Okay. Now, let's start applying that. So we have minus 4 square minus 4 times 2 times 3. One important thing to be noted over here is b was not just 4 but negative 4. Remember the standard form. Standard form was ax square plus bx plus c. It is positive b in the standard form. But over here we have a negative 4. So if your b is negative in the given quadratic equation, always take that negative along while substituting whether in d or whether in the quadratic formula. Okay, so now let's get back to solving for d. We have minus 4 square minus 4 into 2 into 3. What do we get? We get 16 minus 24. This comes out to be minus 8. Now, what was when d was less than 0? We had just learned. In this case, d was here. D is less than 0. That means no real roots, right? So what are we going to comment now? Please do not leave your answer just over here. The second part of the question asks for find the nature of roots. So now we will be winding up with this answer. Since d is less than 0, we don't have real roots, right? D is less than 0, so we don't have real roots. Or you can simply write, since d is less than 0, there are no real roots. It means the same thing. Okay, so this is how you find the discriminant, and then if asked for the nature, you will comment about it. But please do not go extra mile where they are just talking about the discriminant, they are not talking about the nature, and still you are commenting. Okay, now another one, it is also picked up from NCERT, and the question is again finding the discriminant and nature. So let's start with it. Now, D is B square minus 4AC, right? What we have B over here? Again, our B is negative, which is minus 2. Then minus 4 times A is 3 and C is 1 by 3. Solving it, what does it gives us? It gives us it gives us positive 4, and then these three got cancelled. 4 minus 4, which is 0. So now we have found the value of D over here, which is 0. And what is this? We are having equal roots, right? So we have seen two questions over here, where in the first one, D was less than 0. So we concluded that there were no real roots. Now in the second, we are getting D equals to 0. That means we have got equal roots. I hope this video makes sense to you, where we learned the quadratic formula. We learned about the discriminant and how to solve questions with respect to discriminant. Do keep watch on the channel, as soon you will be seeing the videos with respect to lots of quadratic equations questions from NCERT and from your old NCERT also, because actually it had lots of important questions. So I will be making a video shortly for that as well. Bye. Happy learning.